Destiny has had a very interesting journey from its release to the state it's in now. The first year almost acted as a beta to test the waters and gather player feedback. The first DLC, coming shortly after the initial release, hardly had enough time to be responsive to the community, but as time passed, House of Wolves added a more competitive PvP activity with Trials of Osiris, and finally The Taken King, an absolute economy and progression overhaul that vastly improved the way the game played for the better. The community feedback was amazing. Rise of Iron delivered successfully with a raid and a new Supremacy game mode, but arguably was overall lacking in content. We can only hope that after what will be 3 years of Destiny, the sequel will be everything players will have asked for. Here's what we know so far. Activision has said the game will be releasing in late 2017. A lot of people are anticipating a pushback to early 2018, however you should remain confident in the 2017 release because it will significantly benefit Bungie due to a late release resulting in loss of stock from Activision. Originally, the leaked schedule showed a supposed release date system as follows: game, then 2 expansions, mega expansion a year later, 2 more, and then a game the following year. This fell apart as it went along. The first game came out, followed by The Dark Below, then The House of Wolves, with The Taken King a year later. But following The Taken King, Bungie was too small to create content needed for a good second year, and work on the sequel. Bungie actually hired other smaller companies to work with live teams to create small events in an attempt to keep up player activity. By the time the April update came along, adding Prison of Elders changes and a light level increase, the majority of the team was already working on Destiny 2, leaving a small portion to finish up Rise of Iron and work on future smaller events. According to Kotaku, some parts of The Taken King were originally supposed to take players to Mars, but the missions were cut. It's assumed that a fair bit of the sequel campaign will take place there. This would also fit well with the heavily speculated idea that the Cabal will be at the forefront of Destiny 2. The first obvious reason for this is that they were the only enemy class without their own raid or expansion. We fought the Vex in the Vault of Glass, Fallen or Siva in the Wrath of the Machine, Hive in Crota's End, and the Taken in King's Fall. This only leaves the Cabal. It is also speculated in the original content release plan that the last expansion before the Destiny sequel would be called The Forge of Gods, and feature a Cabal-themed DLC. If this idea was in the works, then the content would have easily been shifted to a sequel. Another main area that has also been revealed for the sequel by an industry insider, Shinobi602, who has a very positive track record with games knowledge, says that the game will take players to Saturn, and this explorable area will be larger than all previous patrol areas put together. He also reported that High Moon Studios and Vicarious Visions will both be producing parts of the game as well. Those are both other video game developing companies. Something else happened involving a toy line that gives us a small hint as to what the story may contain. Recently, 3 sets of unannounced Mega Bloks toys were listed on Amazon before they were taken down. Toys quite often set up spoilers because they must be designed and produced before the release of their related product. 2 of them were relating to Destiny 1, very straightforward stuff. But one, the set was called Cabal Goliath Tank Building Set and had the description as follows: a legendary warrior faces his greatest contest yet in the tower hangar. This is definitely nothing that we've seen in Destiny 1. It continued to imply Lord Shaxx was having a showdown with the Cabal Redguard within the tower. Very recently, a Redditor by the name of Inside Leaks, a self-described Bungie administrator, says that in the story, the Cabal attacked the last city, leaving civilians and mentors in the tower defenseless. It will be the Guardian's job to fight back and reclaim the city. He also mentions a much greater look into Mara Sov, the Queen of the Reef, and the Exo Stranger from Vanilla Destiny, the base game. Take all that with a grain of salt, however, because some points this source has made have been refuted directly by Bungie. Now let's talk about the title. All the way back in 2015, a post on Reddit came from someone who knew someone at Bungie, and they said the title of the sequel would be Destiny 2: Shattered Suns. It was then assumed by the community that the story would involve Osiris, a warlock banned from the city and the creator of a cult on Mercury. He was originally supposed to be a main character within Destiny 1, but now we only know of him because of Trials of Osiris. It's very possible he could be involved in the sequel, because game companies always try to make the most of their creations and assets and reuse the content. More recently, the same Redditor as before, Inside Leaks, said that the game's sequel would actually be called the Forge of Hope. This would make a lot of sense, as the original name for the Cabal expansion was called Forge of Gods. However, Eric Osborne, a writer at Destiny, once becoming aware of this supposed leak, simply tweeted, "Forge of Nope," shutting down that option immediately. Another great source of information is rejected concept art. Well, how would rejected art help, you might wonder? Well, here's how the process works. Bungie will sometimes go to freelance artists to get more specific and fleshed out ideas of what they think they want. For example, Bungie puts out the idea that they want to play with the concept of an apocalyptic setting in the tower. Multiple artists draw their interpretations, and Bungie chooses to become owners of the art that they like, and that can't be released to the public. However, the ones that they don't like, no matter how similar to the ones that they have chosen for the game's inspiration, are still property of the artists and can be used by them for their future portfolios, and they become public online. Because of this, we can observe the rejected art to see the general idea of what Bungie is going for. In the art, we see tons of fire and tons of darkness. Shattered Suns could fit very well with this theme, actually, as well as the fire-based attacks from the Cabal. We also see very strong imagery of potential new subclasses, which is awesome. Destiny 2 will be a full sequel, however the idea of progress has been a strong one since Destiny's inception. Deej, the community manager, on several occasions has mentioned that the time you put in carrying over is very important to the developers of Destiny. It will be very interesting to see how this works. They could either have the current system implemented, where new characters get a one-time level boost, such as the Spark of Light, and veterans will have all three of theirs already at the max levels, or it could be something purely cosmetic, but I guess we'll just have to see. The DLC plan is anyone's best guess at this point. Last year, when Kotaku reported the shift to free events and microtransactions, Bungie quickly confirmed and followed suit with the introduction of Tess Everest and her for sale emotes, and shortly after, several live events. I would personally much rather get a new raid every few months and pay than have tons of microtransactions, cosmetics, and pseudo-content like the Festival of the Lost, but to each their own. World design lead Steve Cotton commented that popularity makes it hard to change things, but they will still try to push the boundaries for the sequel. This could very well be an entirely new experience from the previous Destiny game. Cotton also hinted at potential future Void questlines or expansions, which would make sense because the other never released DLC was called Vex Void. One of the most major changes, however, reported by Kotaku is the play-in destinations, which will make for a much more cohesive experience. This would also explain the need for such a large area in Saturn. By play-in space, it's meant that the content breaks in gameplay won't be experienced. For example, something you might experience in Destiny could be you select a character, you load into orbit. From there you decide to buy some materials with your marks, and you need to go to the tower for that. Then you load back to orbit. Then you realize you have to attune an artifact, so you load to the Iron Temple, then back to orbit. Then you want to run trials with your friends. You go to the Reef, and then back to orbit, and then into your game. The amount of loading screens and breaks in play in between will hopefully be something that's taken out. This would be a similar experience to The Division in the sense that all the missions were walking distance apart and triggered by entering certain areas. They had these sort of clever loading screens where when walking into a social space or hub, it would merely slow your walking for a short bit. This would be like having the tower social space right in the middle of the Cosmodrome and just using your Sparrow to go back and forth between the tower and your new mission areas. This allows for a much more realized and greater world potential and depth of public events and world design. And last of all, it will be coming to PC. This will be very interesting for two reasons. First off is that Bungie had negative views towards the PC community involving Halo because of the excessive and easy ability to mod and hack. Data mining raid mechanics could be dangerously detrimental to core game features, and also it'll be very interesting to see the entire competitive PvP community flipped upside down. Everyone currently seen as very good and very skilled within the competitive community will have a much more minimal skill gap on controller compared to that of mouse and keyboard. Anyways, that's all for today. Make sure to hit that subscribe button, leave questions in the comments below, and I'll see you all next time.